Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man, at your service. Half bone, half bandage, all blood-curdling horror. The Mummy. Not your mummy, but the mummy, the ancient Egyptian mummy. Yes, shambling ghoul from the tombs. Obviously severely pissed off that someone has desecrated his tomb again. Why won't these academics just leave well alone? Don't they realise by now that the minute you plunge your shovel into the Valley of the Kings, some big dig in Luxor, you're just going to bring the wrath of the pharaohs down upon your neck? Anyway, the Dubois expedition of 1900 in Hammer's 1964 semi-classic Curse of the Mummy's Tomb are soon to find out. In the opening sequence, the actual opening to it, which is a glorious sort of, segue into what's going to come next. Colourful executions. Mr. Dubois, in charge of the expedition, is strung between two wooden stakes in the desert. Well, I say desert, it's a bit of a sand pit on the back lot of MGM Studios at Boreham Wood. Not Bray Studios this time. Hammer now had relinquished Bray Studios and had moved on to Boreham Wood. Well, that's where Columbia's money was, Columbia Pictures, and they were bankrolling this movie. And he's there, staked out with some cackling Arabs, and then a knife is plunged into his gut. Oh, and he sags down. Well, no, they're not finished yet. No, hack off that hand, why don't you? Indeed, whoosh. And then he starts playing around with this guy's hand. Oh, bloody hell. So, anyway, this is what happens when us infidels go and desecrate the tombs of the pharaohs. Don't do it, folks. Don't do it. But these guys do. This expedition is also bankrolled, like the film itself, by American money. And in this case, it's Alexander King, played by the great American comedian Fred Clark. And he brings a lot of colour to this movie in a film that has very little in the way of actual, usual Hammer stalwarts in there. It's all a whole new cast, really. But he brings this flourish and this showmanship to it. And he's great. But he's the one who's like, look, I don't want the mummy residing in some skanky corner of some museum that people will only wander in and see when it's a rainy day. I want to take him around the world and show him to everybody. People in Midwest America can pay top dollar for this kind of spectacle. So, very altruistic, yeah. Big philanthropist. But, so, they get all this stuff back to Blighty as a big exhibition to show what they've uncovered in this tomb. And you think it'd be like all of London's top press and all the dignitaries are going to be there, but in actual fact, and it's kind of strange because this movie it's got a reasonable budget for its time and for a Hammer picture, and it's colourful, it's shot really well, it's handsomely mounted, but in this sequence there's only about 10 people in the audience, and you can quite clearly see rows and rows and rows of empty seats behind them. It just kind of always strikes me as a little bit odd. But anyway, during this big production, which is kind of like a poor man's version of what they do when they get King Kong back to Broadway in New York, and they have a big showboating sequence, a musical dance number, light show and everything, and Alexander King is giving it his all as the greatest showman, and they open the casket and it's empty. Oh, all that build-up, and the mummy ain't there. Not even a bandage on the ground. Just gone. But where's it gone now? Well, in a time-honoured fashion of these things, you know it, you're expecting it. He has been revived, of course, to reenact the curse of the mummy's tomb. He will then go and lay waste to all the people who actually ordained to enter his tomb and cause such sacrilege. So, head mashings, back breakings, and lots of French windows are crashed asunder. Very similar to what we saw a few years before in Hammer's first and most successful foray into foolhardy Egyptology with the original The Mummy, where Peter Cushing played Banning, the Egyptologist who brings it back to the UK, and Christopher Lee plays Caris, the Mummy, towering, hulking brute that smashes his way through French windows, tears the bars out of like an asylum window to get in for his victim, breaks backs and strangles people, and it's just tremendous. This is cut from the same bandage, but it's nowhere near the quality. And yet, no matter at all. It's a very enjoyable, very colourful romp. It plays by the rules, except that you have a fair bit more brash, brazen American style, in your face, not slapstick, but comedy lines brought by Fred Clark as Alexander King. The Mummy itself is played not by Christopher Lee this time, but by stuntman Dickie Powell. Is it Dickie Powell? I always get these things wrong. Dickie Owen. I've got the names here. Dickie Owen. Now, Dickie Owen is not an actor, although he does play various other roles throughout the Hammer movies. I mean, he plays an Arab in this as well, as indeed does Hammer Stalwart and one of the most famous faces of Hammer's supporting cast, Michael Ripper. They've got him playing an Arab. And that, it could be a little bit foolhardy, that, because he doesn't make a very convincing Arab, and he does pay the price. He gets found with a knife in his guts as well. But because lots of skullduggery take place in Egypt when they first uncover all this, not only does old man Dubois get offed and executed, but various other things go missing, and there's ransackings and other murders, and that's before they even get to Blighty. Even on the ship coming over, which in some rumours that I've heard is actually, they say it's a black and white shot taken from the classic Titanic movie, A Night to Remember, but they must have colourised it because it's not in black and white in this movie. It may well be that a shot from that, I don't know, but anyway. But on board that ship, another attempt is made to try and steal an amulet and all this kind of stuff, and people are clubbed over their head and what have you, and then a mysterious man is met, and this would be Adam Beauchamp, played by Terence Morgan. Terence Morgan, who is great actually, and he looks like he should have gone on to play Bond. He has that look about him. There's a Lazenby look about him. The hair is immaculate, the face is chiselled, he looks mean, and he means business. And he becomes a benefactor to this ill-fated expedition. To the executed Professor Dubois, his daughter Annette Dubois, played by the sadly ornamental, but actually quite good and very pretty Jean Rowlands, who was actually born in Burma, and they changed her real life name to Jenny Rowlands, and it was Jean Rowland, and she's also overdubbed as well. Not an illustrious start. Michael Carreras, who wrote, produced, directed this movie, the son of James Carreras, who was the head honcho of Hammer, until the two of them had a little bit of a falling out when lots of young Michael's ideas kind of got cancelled behind his back. Didn't like that. Tried to make some independent movies, kind of failed. Came back into the fold of Hammer. And because in those days union rules stated that he couldn't have 3 credits on the film, so even though he'd written it, he then took the name of Henry Younger, which was a play on the name John Elder, which Anthony Nelson Keys, who was part of the Hammer stable, would use it as a nom de plume. So with a fake name as a writer, he could then direct and take the credit for producing, even though he actually didn't produce jack shit. A friend of his called Bill Hill took over all the chores of that, for a sizable, percentage, and a big crate of champagne as well. So, this is how the system worked in those days. The system was also a bit strange in the UK. Once you reach a certain time, it was clock off, union rules, we're going down the pub. So all, the crew would just exit stage left. In America, as Alexander King, as Fred Clark, who plays Alexander King, would remember, well, if we need to finish the day's shoot, we stay on and finish the day's shoot. These limeys just split off and go for a pint. But anyway, the film does proceed with colourful aplomb, and even though the mummy itself is a little bit underwhelming, I mean, Dickie Owen he's hulking enough, but Roy Ashton, who did the makeup effects for it, realised that, this guy's bigger. I had to crack open, the first suit that he made to make the suit actually bigger. And then he realised as well that, look, this guy can't really move that well, and we've got a great big finale set in the sewers beneath London, and this guy's meant to bring down the roof upon his head and then crash down into the water, and that's the end of him. He said, but this guy will not be able to move and breathe in those bandages, that makeup underwater. So, and he said to an assistant, a grip there, look, one of the stunt officials, I'm going to have to be on standby to cut him out of those, those bandages underwater. Oh no, it'd be all right. The second, the polystyrene blocks of stone land on him and he goes underwater, he couldn't breathe. His throat was actually full of water. It had soaked through. So Roy Ashton had to get in there and scissor this poor stuntman monster out of the costume. But this is a film, again, where you haven't got star power to it, but you have to depend on a lot of character interaction. And Terence Morgan and who's the other guy? Ronald Howard. Ronald Howard is the boyfriend of Annette Dubois. But when Annette Dubois meets Adam Beauchamp on the ship coming over, Adam Beauchamp actually saves her fella because another attempt is made to steal somebody's artifacts. And people are getting clubbed over the head and knocked out. But Adam leaps into the fray, saves the day, punches this ne'er-do-well who goes overboard and never seen again. So he stepped in and saved the day. So Annette formed an attachment to him. He says, when you come back to England, where you staying, don't stay in any poxy hotel. Come and stay at my place. I've got a luxurious estate. Come and stay with me. There's plenty of room there. But really, he's putting the move on Annette. And who can blame him? Her fella's a stuffy old twat. But could there be an ulterior motive as well? Because it all hinges on an amulet. Don't they always? It isn't like a scroll of life. It's an amulet. Now that amulet actually has the inscriptions upon it, which are about life and death and immortality. So to have that, you could then bring back, the mummy. Lo and behold, Annette's wearing it, and it's a little bit like that, only it's got hieroglyphics on it. And Adam spies this. Oh, that's the amulet. That tells all the prophecy. That can bring life and death and immortality. And he's like, how do you know all that? How does he know that indeed? How is it that the mummy manages to get away from the stage and then go on a rampage? Who's pulling all the strings? Is it one of the Ahmet Beys, or it's in a lot of these mummy movies, there's always an Arab hanger-on who's like, he works for the Egypt government, but he oversees the dig, but he's always, he's got one of those little hats on, and he's always a little bit shady. And in this, it's, what's his name? It's always called something Bey. Mehmet Bey, Ahmet Bey. Oh, what is it now? Oh. Well, I can't find him. But it doesn't matter. Let's just call him Reggie Bey. He's there. So is he pulling the strings? Certainly, some people think he is, and then they'll try to uncover his subterfuge. But really, he's a good guy. Hey! The bad guy, of course. Who is it? It's Adam, the big, hunky James Bond wannabe leading man. Yeah, the one who came to the rescue. All along, he's been after this amulet. All along, he's wanted to get the mummy free. Why? Because it's his brother. How can that be? How, you may say? Because 3,000 years ago, the mummy, who was one of two sons of the Pharaoh Ramses, the 18th, 19th, whatever, Ramses, and an assassination takes place because he's the favourite son, and the younger one, called B, has assassins stab this guy, and then, unbelievably, hack his hand off. As I say, it's almost like there's a George Lucas style zeal with hands coming off in this movie, because it happens several times. And his hand is gone, but then the Pharaoh finds out what's happened and curses the other brother on his deathbed. You will live forever. The only one who can kill you will be your own brother. You will live eternity in shame. So we're now talking 3,000 years later, and Adam Beauchamp, really Bay, has found a way to end it all, get his brother back to maybe... See, this is where it gets confusing. Does he want his brother to end his immortality because only his brother can kill him? Because as he says in that finale, when he's abducted Annette Dubois and gone down into the basements, into the sewers beneath London, he's saying, he wants his brother to kill her to join him in immortality. But that means she'll be dead. He's already immortal. So you want your brother to kill you as well, but then you'll both be dead. And what? It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. Not that it really matters. But this is a film where, again, like in the original The Mummy, directed by Terence Fisher with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee's mummy, Carice, famously crashes through the French windows and tries to throttle Stephen Benning, which is Peter Cushing, a good couple of times. And this will happen in this movie as well, and it's almost as effective. You've got, I think his name is Dalrymple. He's another one of these initial excavationists on this initial expedition, and he's a bit of a drunkard as well, and a nice character piece. You gradually see him unravel. He starts drinking more and more. He's a bit stumbling, and this is an erudite academic as well, but he's beginning to come apart at the seams when all this shit's happening, and it's quite effective. Oh, you don't trust me anymore either. I'm losing all my respect, and he's sitting at his desk, and he hears a noise outside, and he looks over his shoulder at these bay windows, and there's a mist swirling out there, and you can just about see something in that mist. He looks away, he looks back again when he hears another noise, and you see a bit more of an outline, and then suddenly there it is. It's old Dickie Powell through the French windows. Dalrymple's got a gun. Oh, he's got a revolver, and yet he manages to fire 8 shots out of it. Bang, 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 and this thing just keeps coming, and it bends him over the desk, picks up like one of them Egyptian cat statue things, poof, 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 clubs him down. Yeah, you're gone. The Mummy will also kill Fred Clark's character, Alexander King, the Greatest Showman, in what is one of the best sequences in the movie. He's portrayed mainly as a big-mouthed, brash American braggart, and yet on the night of the opening, which has all gone to rack and ruin, the two helpers there, both British stalwart faces from comedy and dramas and that, always playing little urchins and ne'er-do-wells. He gives them a sizable tip, and they're because he's not that bad a person. And then as he's walking up these great stone steps, a streetwalker, a prostitute, says, "Anything I can do for you, love?" And he goes, "Just get some money out." He goes, "You have a good night there, hon." Off you go. "Oh, you're a decent gent, you are." He just laughs at her. So he's not that bad. Having said that, he turns the corner, goes up some more of these steps, and standing at the top, in like, framed by a stone archway, is the mummy, and he would be the first victim. And the mummy just picks him up and throws him down these stone steps, a bit like The Exorcist, and then he rolls into what you presume is the Thames, and he's gone. That's actually a really good sequence. Sadly, apart from that sequence and the initial crashings through the French windows, the mummy actually gets to be a bit underused, and that entire finale down in the sewers, where Adam Beauchamp, B, has confessed all to Annette and then dragged her down into the sewers, whilst her boyfriend, her fella, who kind of knows that she's fallen for this Adam, the dark-haired, suave, sophisticated type, and he's this, academic washout, really, who spends half the film with a great big plaster on his neck after having been knocked out not once but twice and left for dead. And so he knows he's already lost this woman to this other guy, so regardless, she's not going to come running back to him. Would you want her anyway after what she's done? I think not. But they're in hot pursuit, and the B confesses all to her in this bizarre, finale. Also, B will lose a hand. When they get down to the sewers, there's a great big grate which he's like, his hand is sticking through it, and they're trying to stop him going through, and he slams it on his own wrist, severing his own hand. Not that bad, and quite gory as well for its time. You see him clutching his stump, and it's all red raw and that, like, although in one little, he turns around and you can quite clearly see the thumb and his fingers tucked away. See, that's what happens when you get a Blu-ray high definition, a restoration of it. You can see all these things. And he then has a fight with the mummy. The mummy's only got one hand. He's only got one hand. He wants to stab Annette Dubois to bring death and join the two together. I don't know how that's going to figure out. But anyway, he's 3,000 years old, mate, But his senility has crept in, perhaps. And but the mummy, as they always do, it's took a shine to the leading lady. Now, in a lot of other mummy films, they see the woman as a reincarnation of their love, or the princess that they pledge their life to. In this case, the mummy just likes her, And I think B says something to him as well, like, oh, your infatuation with beauty or something like that. Oh, it's always been your downfall. And the two of them, this Egyptian dagger, the two of them fight over this. Bear in mind, they've both only got one hand. And in the end, the mummy manages to, in a symbolic shot, the mummy's one remaining hand grabs hold of the wrist of the one remaining hand that his brother's got, whilst he's underwater, and he drowns him. But the thing is, you don't see the stump holding him down, so it actually looks like he's just holding his hand, and yet this guy is just drowning underwater for no reason at all. And then the mummy then takes the amulet from Annette's neck, walks off deeper into the sewer, pulls, where's one good hand, pulls this huge polystyrene rock down and brings the house down upon him. And then you'll see like a rope come down, excuse me, and you'll hear the voices, she's there, the girl's alive, I'm coming for you. And like, in a really rather cheesy shot, the rope just hangs there, and you don't, and like, you're kind of thinking like, is their wimpy boyfriend going to come shinnying down that rope to a rescue? Well, the film cuts out before anyone does. So you just see a rope hanging there for ages, and her cowering in the corner on this ledge above this rather horrible sewage water. Folks, despite, taking the piss out of this movie, I love it to bits. It's colourful, it's non-stop. The bicker banter in the first, pretty much 2/3 of the film. The mummy only really makes an appearance, towards the last third of it, before it gets uncovered and goes on the rampage. But I love all the bicker banter. I love the characters. I do love this bizarre little love triangle that gets set up. Adam Beauchamp is tremendous. I think he's a great character, despite the confusion with his motives really at the end as to what he's really trying to achieve. There's a sequence where they realise, okay, the mummy's doing its thing, let's set a trap for it. So you have, I forget his name every time. Oh, Ronald Howard, who's the boyfriend, and the Arab, Reggie Bay, sitting there in the same parlour room where the mummy crashed through the French windows only the night before. And they hear the sound, they look round, and where the French windows were, the curtains have been drawn across, and a big bandaged hand comes around the corner. So they get up to investigate. Next thing, the curtains come down, and it's the mummy again. But what, especially now in this glorious restoration, you can see quite clearly the net which is on the ceiling and the rope supporting it, because the police have set a trap for it. So as he walks in, the net drops on it, and the police all try to tie him down. Have a look at the police. None of them seem that bothered. It's a fucking 3,000-year-old mummy come back to life. It's already murdered some people, and it's right in front of you. And they're just like trying to hold this rope, and like, they don't give a shit. But the great thing about it is the Arab, sort of the guy who's been overseeing, or the Arab side, the Egypt side of the whole expedition. He's there, and now he's seen it. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, my descendants and all my ancestors apologise for what's happened to you. My life is nothing. I owe you my life, and I must suffer in eternal, torment for what I've done, what I've allowed to happen. And he kneels down, and the mummy breaks free of its bonds and puts his foot on his head and squashes his head flat, and then casually just walks back out again. Now, this film had a lot of problems with the censors. Most Hammer films did. From Curse of Frankenstein onwards, Curse of the Werewolf as well, and a lot of curses here. But this one, I've got a copy of the letter which was sent back to Hammer Films from the BBFC at the time, they were British censors, and John Trevelyan was in charge of that crap. They must have got the jitters every time a new Hammer film was announced. And Hammer would send the script, and they would just pick apart the script. No, that doesn't sound too good. No. And this film, although it was certified X at the time, it's only a 12 certificate now. And even though you've got loads of hand loppings in it as well, and some crushings and back breakings and what have you. But that sequence, they said, we're not having that, a bandaged foot crushing some guy's skull. So you just see the foot come down, and that's it. However, if you do want to see a mummy split someone's skull apart underfoot, watch Anthony Hickox's Waxwork. You see it then. And that's a good sequence as well. But so this film had a lot of troubles with the censors, and yet it still seems to be quite violent. What got through, very colourful, quite possibly gratuitous in some ways. But but I like this sort of thing, and I'm sure you do too. You've heard a bit of the score as well. The score by Carlo Martinelli. Don't be fooled by that. He's British as they come, and but he was told, look, we're going to use some of Franz. I always call him Reisenstein. It's Franz Reisenstein who scored The Mummy for Hammer originally, and for some flashback sequences they do use his score. Now Carlo Martinelli was told this, so his score works around a lot, and his score is pretty good. It's a full orchestra. It's a lot of money went towards his score, and it's well worth it. See, the film, it played as part of a double bill with the Gorgon, and that must have been quite an entertaining, team up. The sedate, handsome, leisurely, articulate, very literate the Gorgon, and then the trashy, camp, funny, in your face antics of Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. I think they'd be, great good fun, double up. And Powerhouse Indicator has released the two films, the Gorgon, which I reviewed earlier today, and now this. And having watched the two of them pretty much back to back, I've had that experience, and it is wonderful. Curse of Mummies 2, it's not going to win any awards ever at all, but it's still well worth your time and effort. If you're into Hammer movies, then you're going to do it anyway. It doesn't have, the star power. It doesn't have a lot of the usual faces. It's not even filmed in the same places either. It's like Bray Studios, it's Boreham Wood, and the sets are a little bit underdressed. But the cinematography, again, I think Otto Heller did the photography for this one, and it's good. There's a great couple of panning shots in it where Adam Beauchamp's reading a romantic poem to Annette Dubois. The camera swivels from one to the other in one gliding movement with a lovely fire roaring in the mid-ground. And lots of other shots are evocative and gliding and sinuous. Folks, I'm going to run out of time, but I think you'll all agree this is the third video I've done today, and they've all been Hammer related, so put it this way, we've well and truly hammered it today. I think you'll agree. Folks, take it easy, be happy, be safe, watch your French windows, and I'm going to see you all later. Now, where's my shovel? I've got some digging to do.